There is question about what makes a person commit crime, knowing that the consequences of this would be becoming a felon and spending many years in jail. One of the many crimes that the world sees today is people selling drugs. The discussion about what makes a person sell drugs is that there might be certain situation that influence this crime among a population. Imagine living single, paycheck to paycheck with 2 or 3 kids. Financially, it can be frustrating not to be able to get a raise or save money because you have to spend every penny on just getting by. With little help from family and little encouragement from peers, dealing drugs could be the only way out. For example, in the book The Other Westmore, the difference between the narrator, Westmore, and the boy similar to him, also named Westmore, shows a social and environment aspect that influenced different outcomes on each boy. The narrator became famous and wealthy, and the other Westmore spent the rest of his life in prison for committing a crime. Therefore, I agree that poverty, family, and peers can all be a huge influence on individuals. Although it takes many different influences to actually contribute to crime, poverty, family impact, and peer pressure are among the biggest. According to poverties.org, when a person is stuck into poverty and crime, they are left with 2 choices: either take part in the criminal activity or find a legal but limited source of income. And that's only if there are jobs in the area. I agree with this research because the pressure of being poor and needing to find money to support yourself and others would convince some people that taking the option of selling drugs rather than spending a lot of time and effort searching for another source of income is the easiest way of overcoming poverty, therefore making it the most logical choice. One of the biggest impacts on the youth today is unemployment. Just 6 years ago, the unemployment rate for the youth had reached its highest point at 19.5%. When the youth are struggling to find a job and make money, they quickly become desperate for money. They find it more suitable to quickly make money by selling drugs rather than waste time on businesses that don't want unexperienced kids. This unemployment and struggle for the youth to find a job can be a pressure into dealing drugs because of the desperate situations kids put themselves in just to make a bit of money for living or spending. Another factor that contributes to the influence of selling drugs would be the impact on family situations. The question raises up whether or not parents and guardians can be blamed for the children who grow up and start selling drugs and causing crime. Researchers at Cambridge University's Institute of Criminology predicted that kids who have a convicted parent by the age of 10 have a higher percentage of becoming antisocial criminals themselves. The habits and events that these kids observed from close family members, such as selling drugs and causing crime, are events that they are more comfortable around because that's how they were raised. Even though they know that these actions are considered crimes, they consider, well, if my family got away with it, why couldn't I? The possible outcome is not a huge problem for them because they see a side of criminal activity that their parents allowed, giving them the opportunity to reason with it as well. Another research shows that the way a parent raises their child pertaining to the discipline and monitoring affects how likely a child is to act out or associate with deviant behaviors. A child who is overly punished or punished unfairly can cause them to misbehave or create deviant traits. The same goes for parents who don't monitor their child in terms of who they hang out with or where they hang out. When a parent is constantly unaware or uninterested in their child's whereabouts, the child will feel freedom to do anything they want, whenever they want, or just however they want. Meaning that they could go hang out with the wrong kind of people or interact with the wrong kind of activities. Which brings me to my next piece of this argument, is that peers are also influences on crime. That when an adolescent is unconnected with their parents and lack that bond that children should have with their parents, they tend to lean towards those who encourage them and their decisions. The rejection that is felt from parents from those kids who want it the most is a reason why the adolescent is so easily convinced to give into peer pressure. When a child feels ostracized from their parents, the group of friends that accepts and encourages bad decisions, like selling drugs, is a way for them to feel important to a group of people. And regardless of how much time this individual spends with a group of people, when a bond a person should have with their parents is replaced by a bond with friends, the actions the peers make will be the primary influence instead of the parents' influence, meaning that the influence from the deviant friends is going to be stronger than the influence the person has with any other person, like their parents. As for poverty, many disagree that being poor is an excuse for a crime to happen. They say that those in poverty mainly all have the basic necessities like shelter, water, and food, and are doing okay on their own. Then they ask, why do the poor who commit crime do so? This is unfair to say about the poor because according to Robert Richter and Rachel Sheffield, poor families certainly struggle to make ends meet, but in most cases, they are struggling to pay for air conditioning and the cable TV bill, as well as put food on the table. When we look at unemployment in the United States, the average rate for it last year was 5.5%. Obviously, this percentage is not big. However, this is still thousands of people who are out of work and trying to find another method of finance. So, although the poor might have basic necessities, the problem is that there is little to no income being made by the unemployed to replenish these goods. Which proves why saying that they have basic necessities is true, but they fail to mention how the poor manage to replenish these needs without a stable source of income. As quickly as these goods run out, the poor are trying to find another quick method of making money to live. Many will say that blaming parents' poverty and peers for influencing crime on their children is completely unfair to do because a child can think for themselves. They argue that although a person can be raised a certain way, there is always room to break habits and simply deviate from wrong decisions because it is the logical thing to do. Although no, it is not that simple in today's growing society. It has become common to fail to understand that most adolescent brains are still under construction while growing up. According to Harvard researchers and the approval of the American Psychological Association, the teenage brain is still developing the reasoning and judgment section in the frontal lobe of the brain. Many laws, like drinking and smoking, are concentrated around the age of 21 because, well, young brains don't make wise decisions. But there is biological proof behind that now. Without the full development of the brain, adolescents have less control in the ability of making the decisions they make. This is a problem when teenagers make bad decisions or reason with bad influences because they might not be fully aware of the choice they are making by allowing this. Even though crime can be a factor anywhere and is influenced randomly, the truth would be that poverty, family, and peers usually connects to a root cause. With this, I restate that poverty is the desperate pressures of making quick money to survive. Family and peers have to do with the basic structure of learning to be a certain way by the way your family raises you or what your peers encourage. All these lead to a huge impact on a person. It is highly important to watch how a person grows up and provide the best kind of childhood for them to prevent future delinquents. And although poverty might not be avoidable in some situations, paying closer attention to parenting methods and monitoring around peers could help reduce bad decisions. For one who has already grown up with bad habits from childhood, learning to ignore or choosing better peers to spend their time with could also be a beneficial move for them. This idea of teaching others the effects of certain influence can create a society where more people are aware of why crime happens and how it can be prevented.